Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to Tower Games. Okay, so I recorded a video 2 days ago, right on Monday, and I ended up rambling for way too long, and I ended up scrapping it because my audio wasn't very good. Like in terms of, I was rambling way too long. I couldn't get to my points. So now I'm kind of redoing the video. And what's funny is that not only did I not like, what I recorded, but there's also been so much new evidence pointing in the direction of what I was talking about, which basically rendered the whole video pointless. It's like, if I didn't get to include this information, it would have been kind of pointless, because now it's just irrelevant because there's just so much new stuff. So I'm going to immediately get into what I'm talking about. So I've had some suspicions. It all started with the Injustice mobile game. It stopped development for 2 years. And so I thought, well, really the only reason this would happen would be if they were maybe making a new game. And it could be Gotham Knights mobile, or Gotham Knights maybe for some sort of spin-off for the Switch. Maybe it's like kind of a mobile game, kind of like maybe a game they would make for the 3DS if the 3DS was still getting games. Maybe they were doing something like that. But what I really thought was maybe they're just developing a new game and for a new franchise. And so here is what I think is happening. So I recorded my video. I was like, fine, whatever. The next day, Lucasfilm Games, which is basically the new brand. So anytime Lucasfilm has a game, so that's like Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and I'm not sure if there's anything else, but there might be, it will be branded under Lucasfilm Games, obviously owned by Disney. And what we now know is that they're having many developers develop games for games in Lucasfilm Games. We now know that Bethesda is making an Indiana Jones game, and I thought, okay, well, that isn't proof of Star Wars getting a new game from just anybody. Until today, when we found out Ubisoft is making a Star Wars game. And this is evidence that would have been left out of the video I recorded. I recorded that on Monday. So what I came to was that I used to think that the next game would have Marvel characters in it in some way, either Marvel standalone or Marvel versus DC. But now I don't think that anymore. After they missed DC Fandom and after they missed the VGAs, I thought anything with Marvel is probably out, and anything with DC is probably out, and because they missed the fandom. And I thought about it, and I was thinking, Disney is kind of done with Marvel. The big push kind of ended when Endgame ended. But they're pushing forward with Star Wars. They're making like a million Disney Plus shows, just a plethora of Disney Plus Star Wars content, and just in general, just like animated shows. There are Star Wars movies coming. They're basically tackling Star Wars big moving forward. And I thought, well, the thing is, and the other thing is that MK11's DLC has lasted so long that it makes me think maybe we're not going to see Mortal Kombat again for a long time. Because maybe their next game is going to be a brand new franchise, that being Star Wars. So at this point, I now think Star Wars is going to be their next fighting game. And I actually thought this before I actually saw Super, the Mortal Kombat creator on YouTube. He actually said Star Wars fighting game, like that he wanted, and I was like, yeah. Even the people in the scene are kind of, I think, starting to think this. And I think this is a strong possibility. I think this is probably huge. Here's the other thing. Ed Boon has been making teases on Twitter, but it doesn't exactly sound like teases for DLC. It sounds more like a tease for just a new game announcement. Because he made a tweet saying like, oh, remember that time they said Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter? And then there was this other thing, he retweeted like a Killer Instinct arcade, and he was like, whoa, or whatever, and he was like, awesome or something. And those types of teases are very specifically game teases. Now, do I think he's teasing, Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat vs. Killer Instinct? No. What I think he's teasing is just the fact that they're going to announce a new game. And now I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work, because this IP is owned by Lucasfilm and Disney. So it makes me think, I guess this means Disney and Lucasfilm will market the game, which I think means that they decide when it's time to reveal it. Because it makes me kind of think, why not reveal this at the VGAs? But then again, why not reveal the Indiana Jones game at the VGAs? Why not reveal the Ubisoft Star Wars at the VGAs? So I think that argument is now out the window, because if you're going to say, why not reveal this at the VGAs, right? Well, why not with the other two games? And the biggest thing is that I almost feel like I'm going to be late on this. This announcement could be as soon as tomorrow, because these announcements have been like daily. They announced on Tuesday Indiana Jones. They announced today, Wednesday, Ubisoft Star Wars. Could we be seeing this announcement as soon as tomorrow? I mean, at this point we have no idea, because then I think they went on Twitter, and then I think they said that they have more announcements coming with many developers. And I'm like thinking, they have to do this. They have to do this. There's no way that I feel like there's no way that they're not going to do this. And what really, I think, sells this for me is the fact that I think Injustice is totally out. Injustice 3, because they held that panel at DC Fandom where Ed Boon made this statement where he's like, we're happy people want to see another installment in the Injustice franchise. It's like, okay, at an event where they would have announced Injustice 3, they don't announce it, and they simply say, we're happy people want an installment in this franchise. Okay, that is like the biggest, this isn't the next game ever. And obviously, they're not going to make Mortal Kombat 12 as the next game. Like, they're not tomorrow going to go, Mortal Kombat 12 is coming in 6 months. Yeah, obviously, right? So this really leaves basically one option, and that's just a new franchise. Now, there are like a lot of possibilities for what this could be. It could be like a horror movie fighting game. It could be a Marvel fighting game. It could be Marvel and DC. Because I do understand that maybe if it's like Marvel and DC, maybe that's not like a DC fandom type of announcement. But I do think it's unlikely at this point that Disney would actually want to promote Marvel over Star Wars at this time. I think they're trying to really promote Star Wars now. And that's obviously the case just with Lucasfilm products, with Indiana Jones and Ubisoft Star Wars. And yeah, I really did, think about this before that. I was just like, Star Wars is a pretty good contender to get a fighting game. I mean, you have so many characters, probably more characters. Is this a controversial statement? Probably more characters than maybe any other franchise that I can think of. I mean, what would even have more? Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones? Maybe I'm forgetting something. But I feel like if I were to guess, I would say Star Wars probably has the most characters, right? And while I kind of had a concern, I'm just like, well, wouldn't a lot of characters have, a lightsaber? And doesn't that mean a lot of characters would kind of have a similar play style? But it's just, there are so many characters. Maybe it's just not a big deal, right? Maybe it's just not a big deal. If half the characters have lightsabers, it's like, well, that's for them to figure out, and that's for them to get creative with. I don't think it deconfirms, right, a game. I think it just means they have to get slightly creative with the special moves and the combos, and everyone has to play different, right? Or maybe they could just lay low on the characters with lightsabers. Maybe only a couple of characters will have lightsabers, and then everyone else will have, cool weapons and all that. There are a ton of weapons. There is a ton. There's a ton to do. And I was thinking about it. I'm just like, stages. I mean, forget it. There's just a billion things you can do as stages. You could probably make 1,000 different stages, right? In all of Star Wars, I mean, you could probably make like 1,000, right? Is that an exaggeration? Because I don't think it is. You could probably make like at least like 1,000 different stages. If that's too much, 100 or hundreds, right? And forget it with characters. I mean, obviously a minimum, and besides, a game like this, a first installment would probably have a minimum of like 30 characters. And it's like, that's a no-brainer. I mean, you pick me 30 Star Wars characters, I mean, easy, right? I can't personally do it, just because I don't want to sit here all day going like, Luke Skywalker, Mandalorian, Darth Vader, Yoda, Jar Jar Binks, Obi-Wan. I don't want to sit here all day and say all that, What's the guy's name? The Phantom Menace guy? Darth Maul? It's a no-brainer. Rey, all the new people, too. It's a no-brainer. Put in a Stormtrooper, put in C-3PO. Wait a minute. Don't put in C-3PO. Put in Baby Yoda. I want to see Baby Yoda go boom! Kill some guy, put him up. Yeah, come on. There's the Force. Half the characters could have the Force. Half the characters would have like guns and different types of weapons, like blasters. You could have that new guy with the dark saber. Forget it. Yeah, Ahsoka. Forget it. There's so much you can do with this, and I feel like I just feel like this is probably a real thing, because it's like, yeah, and it's like, if you look at the developers that they've gone to, it's like they went to Bethesda because they want to make a looter shooter. No, what am I saying? They went to Bethesda because they want to make, what? A third-person shooter, first-person shooter, something like that. They went to Ubisoft because they want an adventure game, right? And obviously, I feel like Star Wars, Disney would probably go to NetherRealm for a fighting game. I mean, they could go to Capcom, but apparently there was a big falling out after Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Apparently they were really unhappy with the whole thing. And yeah, it makes me think, obviously, like, almost like every single game they've made, like Mortal Kombat 2011, Injustice 1, Injustice 2, MKX and MK11. I mean, I think every single one of those games have been a total success, right? I don't think a single one of those games have been deemed a failure in any capacity, right? Like, I don't think they've been deemed a failure in any capacity at all. So, maybe MK11 slightly, but not in terms of profit, I don't think. I think it made quite a lot of money. Maybe in terms of people's interest, I think people like didn't love it as much as the other ones, but I don't think it's in any way a failure. Because I think if it was a failure, they would have stopped the DLC. I think they would have just stopped supporting it and be like, all right, let's just make our next game and forget about this one, right? So it just feels like if there was just a no-brainer pick, I feel like, yeah, it's NRS. If they want a Star Wars game, they want it to do well, they want it to make money, and they just have the right aesthetic anyway. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Do you think a Star Wars fighting game is happening? Let me know. I will see you in the next video. Keep on fighting. Have a fantastic day.